Is it possible to get both here, both a ceasefire agreement and Iran striking Israel back, or is this a one or the other situation?
Hard to assess. I would say it's possible to have both. Very important to get the deal, the ceasefire deal, which hopefully will happen later this week. Lapid, who is in the minority of the Knesset Israeli government, is saying it could happen. And I think that Bibi Netanyahu finally feels that he has to do this, or he's not going to have support should Iran do a swarm attack, either as it did before, or Hezbollah do the same thing across the border from the north of Israel. And so that has to happen first. If these attacks also happen, Israel has to be prepared, and the U.S. Is surging its presence, as you know, in the Eastern Med in defense of Israel.
Well, that's an important part of the story here, Jane. The USS Georgia, the guided missile submarine, now on the way, and they're speeding up the delivery of the Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier strike group. I mentioned that as your group, the National Defense Strategies, put out an important report calling on the Pentagon to better prepare itself with a new construct to deal with multiple wars at once. How do you read this moment in time as we invest ourselves to this extent in the Middle East?
Well, the current national defense strategy issued in 2022, before Russia invaded Ukraine and before this evolving saga in the Middle East, said that China was the pacing challenge, that Russia was also a challenge, and that we should accept other risk. Wrong. It seems to me very clear now that there is a potential for multiple wars. I mean, just look at this unholy alliance among Russia, China, and Iran and North Korea, which could erupt anywhere. And so right now, we have to be thinking about pressing, as we are, using our diplomatic power for the ceasefire, which would be a very helpful thing in the Middle East in general, but certainly for to aid to hopefully eliminate the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But also, we have to think that that the coalition will hold to deter Iranian aggression. What worries me, Joe and Kailey, is that Bibi Netanyahu still doesn't seem to have a day-after strategy. He's done targeted assassinations, and then he prepares his country for retaliation. But what is next? Maybe it's the ceasefire deal will be part of that, but that's a ceasefire. What comes after that? And I think it was quite an embarrassment to Israel to take out the leader of Hamas and then to have him replaced by the fellow who actually was the architect of the attacks on Israel last October 7. So how far is he getting?
Well, Jane, it's remarkable. We had breaking news just earlier this hour from Fitch, the ratings agency, downgraded Israel from A+ to A, and they specifically cite in their statement their view that the conflict in Gaza could last well into 2025, that there are risks of it broadening to other fronts, specifically mentioning the escalating tension between Israel and Iran. And what Fitch is warning about here is essentially the threat to Israel's finances and the budget deficit that could result. It raises the question, as you talk about the U.S.'s ability to conduct wars on multiple fronts. Is Israel able to continue this for much longer? Obviously, knowing a lot of support will come from the U.S., but does the U.S. have that to give indefinitely?
Great set of questions. Israel, remember, was startup nation, had a booming economy in the Middle East, which is why so many countries in the Sunni Arab region want to do business with it. That economy is at risk because of this long war. I mean, October 7, 2024 is just a couple months away, so this has been going on for 10 months already. There's that. And then there is exhaustion in the military, which is clear. And some claim that the military was never trained for counterinsurgency fighting, which is what it's trying to do in Gaza. But sadly, the bombing campaign there is creating much more collateral damage than most counterinsurgency fights create. So I think this is very risky strategy for Israel. Yes, I do. And I think the Israel population is beginning to feel this in a way and maybe move against the Netanyahu government. I don't know what they will do. That's their call, not our call. But it is time not only to take the ceasefire deal, but to have a day-after plan so that Israel can regain its balance in a region where it was adding so much economically.
Jane, as a Democrat who has a long career in foreign policy, I wonder your advice for Kamala Harris if, in fact, as is being reported, tens of thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters show up next week in Chicago for the convention.
Well, Chicago has a history of tumultuous conventions. Think 1968. But not only the Democratic Party, but the U.S. public is split on this issue. Sadly, there used to be rock-solid bipartisan support for the state of Israel. The U.S. was the first country to recognize its existence when Harry Truman was president. But now, because of this long form of war in Gaza, a lot of our public has turned against it. So the Democratic Party split. It's going to be tough navigating it, but Kamala Harris is viewed, so I hear, and I think this is true, as much more sensitive on this issue than is Donald Trump, and I think that will help her. But it is very important to get the ceasefire deal, which the U.S. has tirelessly worked for. Kudos to Tony Blinken and others in the State Department and the National Security Council, and to President Biden. It's crucial for that, but then it's also crucial to keep the pressure on to develop a strategy so that this war that is achieving only radicalizing the public in Gaza and hurting the Israeli economy can stop.
Well, Jane, I'd like to ask you about another ongoing war as well. Ukraine confirmed today that it has now seized control of about 1,000 kilometers in Russian territory in the Kursk region. There's been more than 100,000 Russians who have fled as a result. Is this bringing Ukraine closer to ending its war with Russia, or is it perhaps just risking intensifying the fight that Russian President Vladimir Putin wants to have with Ukraine?
Well, I have long urged Ukraine to be able to respond against Russian targets that are attacking them. I hope that's what they're doing, not civilian populations. I think that's what they're doing. I know there's support for what they're doing in the U.S. Senate on a bipartisan basis. Senators Blumenthal and Graham have said they support this. I wish it had started much earlier. I think that would have prevented a lot of the killing that's going on, sadly, on both sides. But it's important, if this war will end, for Russia to feel that it has to negotiate, not for Russia to feel that it can continue to degrade Ukraine. And the way it will feel that is if it finally feels harm inside Russia against those military installations. And oh, by the way, if they are destroyed or at least degraded, then they won't be able to attack inside Ukraine, which has been going on. And finally, Ukraine also has some air cover, which it hadn't had earlier in this war. I mean, Ukraine is on the right side. Ukraine needs to push Russia back. There probably needs to be a deal at the end of this, but Russia has to feel that it will be unsafe to aggress into Ukraine. And I think the NATO strategy has to work too. Ukraine now has an offshore NATO facility in Germany, but there needs to be a solid program to admit Ukraine into NATO once the fighting has stopped.